Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today in the Locker Room. I'm Alan Locher. Actress Rebecca Staab is stopping by today to tell us about her new role in the Netflix romantic comedy Love Hard that premieres this Friday, November 5th. It looks so good. Rebecca continues to work nonstop and will fill us in on all that she's been working on. She will also, of course, reminisce about her time on Guiding Light and Port Charles. So let's get started. Please welcome to the Locker Room, my friend Rebecca Staab. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, Alan. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm great.
Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. Look, I'm still like fixing my hair. It's like
and thank you for participating. I know it was such a fast and furious our autism benefit for Guiding Light. We raised a lot of money, so thank you so
good.
much.
It was so fun for me to see, everybody because we don't really get to see anybody anymore. And it was John Bolger I wanted to say hi to, and he was on right before me, and I was in the back, in the stage room. I'm like, hi, tell him hi. So when you talk to John Bolger, tell him I said hi.
I did, and he sends his love back. I did tell him that afterwards. I meant to share that.
Oh, good.
Well, let's talk about the movie. Netflix this Friday. That's exciting.
It's so good. This movie is so good. It's really funny, like genuinely funny, and really touching. Like there's a lot of stuff. It was funny because they sent us like a preview link so that we could see it. And I know the movie and I know what's going to happen. And there were so many times I'm sitting here by myself laughing out loud, literally, even though I knew what was going to happen. These guys are so good. And then there were times where I had like literally like little tears falling. This is so sweet, but it's so good. I'm so excited for this.
Please tell us about the movie.
Well, if you haven't seen the preview, it's a girl in LA who goes on a dating site, meets this guy.
And that's Nina, right? Nina Dobrev,
who's fabulous. And she goes on this dating site, sees this guy, and then they end up spending, there's Nina and Jimmy O Yang, who if you've seen the trailer, you know more. I kind of always hate when it gives it away. But anyway, she decides to fly to New York to spend Christmas with the guy that she met on this dating site. And they totally hit it off on the dating site. And then she gets to New York and, the record comes to a screeching halt and everything kind of flips because the guy that she's been talking to is not who she thought she was talking to. And who she was talking to is Jimmy O Yang, who you saw in that picture, who catfishes her. But she comes to our house. I play his mom. So I'm the mother of Jimmy O Yang and Harry Shum. And James Sato plays my husband, their father. And that's when all the fun of the movie starts, because it's a little bit of a Cyrano type of thing that when she comes to the house, we're so in awe of her. We're like, oh my God, this girl's beautiful. And, she's with, our son. So he makes a deal with her because the guy who he was posing as, who's played by Darren Barnett, actually lives in the town, and they used to be best friends when they were in grade school. So Jimmy makes a deal with Nina and says, if you stay here and pretend that you're my girlfriend just for my family, because I don't want to let my family down, I'll set you up with the real guy. Everybody wins. And then after Christmas, you go back to LA and we just say we broke up. So that's the story. Is, as far as the family's concerned, she's his girlfriend. But in the background, he is setting her up with the guy that she thinks she's going to fall in love with. And
it's such a great cast. I love Darren from Never Have I Ever.
Yeah.
Love Jimmy from Silicon Valley.
I love Jimmy. and Harry, who's, those two, it was that was the thing, the director, Hernan, he let us improvise a lot. And so with those guys, as long as we would kind of get the gist of the scene, they would just keep the camera rolling. And so it just got funnier and funnier, and we really established a lot of the relationships. And there's a sibling rivalry between Jimmy and Harry, because Jimmy's kind of always been the solitary one, and Harry's, the show off, showboat, always the big success. And, he's mama's favorite. And so mom is kind of like him. And so he and I are a little bigger than life all the time. And then the dad, James Sato, is more like Jimmy Yang's character, where they're more cerebral and, contemplative.
Serious.
Yeah.
Serious.
And so we shot it last year, actually. So it's been literally a whole year. Last time we're still shooting it. But it was because of COVID and everything, they had to wait until this year to put it out. So shooting it was in the heat of COVID last year. It was one of the various productions that was actually up and rolling. So all the super strict COVID protocols. So it made shooting it a lot different, just the human interaction and all that kind of stuff. But it didn't really dampen anybody's, communication or relationship or the outcome of the film. It's so good. It's so much fun. I can't wait for people to watch it, because it moves really quick. I mean, I do have to say a lot of stuff was cut. That's always the thing that you're like, wait, where's that scene in the flower shop? Oh no, where's that scene? But the good thing is they just keep it rolling. And so I had like a really, really nice scene with Nina that we shot in this flower shop, but it's not in there. But everybody had so much stuff cut, which is sad, because especially Harry and Michaela, who plays his wife, those two there were some of those scenes that sometimes, we felt like we were on the Carol Burnett show, because I'm just sitting there and I'm like, don't laugh, because those two are hilarious and they would just riff on stuff. And unfortunately, so much of their stuff is gone. And so even when we were shooting, we're like, we need a sequel, because there was even so much that we couldn't do at the time, and then so much that still isn't in it. And what really makes it work, I mean, the premise works, but the relationships work, that it's very character driven, and you really like and care about everyone. And there's things that are different. It's not just kind of, typical, I've seen this before.
Well, I think Netflix is really smart with just casting so many. First of all, they're casting Harry, who they have him on Glee, because they have Netflix airs Glee.
Yeah.
They have Darren in Never Have I Ever. Don't they have Nina in The Vampire Diaries on Netflix? I think it's on, it's like, they're really cross promoting, but it's great, because it'll attract a large audience for your movie, which I think is.
Yeah. I mean, I hope, I just hope.
Well, and it's the perfect time. November is a great time for romantic comedies, don't you think?
Well, and the joke on a joke is that is it a Christmas movie or is it not a Christmas movie? Whereas, the title kind of comes into it, and you kind of find that as you go, that there's a play on what is is something just set at Christmas? Does that make it a Christmas movie? Like, this is really just a romantic comedy set at Christmas, but does that make it a Christmas movie? And so there's a lot of, jokes going on in there with, Love Actually and Die Hard, and like, what's the best Christmas movie ever? And so maybe Love Hard will get in there as one of the best Christmas movies ever.
Well, that's great. Well, one of your fans, David, says, thanks for inviting Rebecca. She's one of my favorites on all of the Christmas movies that she's in.
Yeah, I just had a Santa stakeout on the Hallmark channel that just
aired, right? Yeah,
with Tamara Mowry and Paul Campbell. So I'm sure that it's rerunning more. You're just gonna have to you can Google it.
Yeah, check their local listings. Everybody, check your local listings.
Very funny. I mean, I just love doing funny ones. That one's really funny. And then I have Christmas in Tahoe, which is coming out on November 29th. It's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. That's Thanksgiving weekend, that Sunday. And that's, the two leads are actually big Broadway stars. So Laura Osnes plays my daughter.
Oh, yeah.
She's so incredible. She's done a few other, if you know her from Hallmark, she's done a few of the Hallmark movies, but she's a huge Broadway star. And Kyle Selig plays the lead guy, again, huge Broadway star. And so it had a real, I don't know, like the whole feeling of it was different, because it's kind of all about putting on a show. And so it's funny that we have these two Broadway stars. And then the big treat for me, was Pat Monahan, who's the lead singer in Train. He's in it too. And I was a huge Train fan. And so again, in that one, there's like a little joke on a joke. The fact that, he doesn't play, the head singer in Train, he plays somebody else. But it's funny how they kind of develop that story that if you know who he is, it's interesting what happens at the end. But
and can you say the name of that one again?
That one is called Christmas in Tahoe.
That's what I thought. And what station?
That's Hallmark.
Hallmark as well.
Yeah, that's Hallmark. And the nice thing is all the music is all done by Train, because Train has an album called Christmas in Tahoe. And so it's different in that sense too, that it's, it's like Train Christmas carols. And so that's November 29th. And that really great cast in that too. I'm so excited to be, part of that ensemble.
Well, you've done so many Christmas movies. How did that just happen?
Well, I'm up in Vancouver. Home is LA, but the majority of the Hallmark movies, they shoot in Vancouver. They shoot other ones in other places, but kind of the bulk of them is here. So just because I was here, it's what's on the menu.
Right.
And, you audition and then you book them, and then, then they get to know you. The very first Hallmark movie that I did was Irresistible Blueberry Farm with Allison Sweeney. And I actually played her mom, but we hit it off so well. And it wasn't like your typical Hallmark mom. She was very upscale, stylish in New York, but self-involved and, a little not really doing the right thing for her daughter's interests. And so since Allie and I hit it off so well, when she executive produced Chronicle Mysteries, she actually had them write a part for me. And so my character that I play in Chronicle Mysteries was that same kind of little bigger than life, always, stylish and fashionable, and always a little bit of an edge and an opinion. So it's fun, and so then the people at Hallmark know who I am. And so when certain films come up, they're just like, will you do this one? Will you do this one? So actually both of those, that they were just offers that, they kind of put them together and then pick their cast. So
do you think your experience, because I was talking to, I think, another actress from daytime who has appeared in some Lifetime movies. Do you think it's your experience in daytime that helps because they know you can do it and do it fast?
Well, it helps me personally, but I don't think like they know it's not a reason on their end,
Gotcha.
Not to go, oh, she used to be in daytime, so let's hire her. I think it's just, more that, once you're kind of in their stable and
in their circle. Well, David says you deserve to have a lead in one of those. So,
well, it's like a lottery ticket in this business. Any day could be the big day,
It's true. It really, God bless you for sticking with it, because it's a tough business.
Well, it is. And, like anything else, it's always names and stars. And, Hallmark really isn't any different, because a lot of their big shows, they get really big names. So that and everything else, whether it's, TV, film, these days, everything stars and names. And so you can be old, you can be pinned, you can be the first choice, you can be, we're just waiting for the dates and then we're going to book you. And then at the 11th hour, it's like, oh, there's another way. And 99.9% of the time is they got some name. And so you're always on that roller coaster. It just happens, and it just happens. And so, when you lose something, you don't feel good for a day or two. And then you just kind of get back on the horse and
keep going. Keep going.
I'm going to book the one tomorrow. I'm going to book the one next week.
Well, you definitely do, and you continue to work. But you are spending so much time in Vancouver. Have you grown to like Vancouver?
Oh, I love Vancouver. So when I first came up, it was like the spring of 2016, and I was just going to stay like for 2 or 3 months, and then it became summer, And summer in Vancouver is probably, and I've lived a lot of places in the world and visited a lot of places. It's one of the best places in the world during the summer. If you ever get a chance to come to Vancouver, come in the summer.
I
It's
think I flew out of Vancouver. I didn't spend any time.
oh, it's so, because it's a city. It's a nice. I won't even say it's in that juxtaposition. It's like the best of both worlds because you have a cosmopolitan metropolitan center, but it's so everything's outside, and there's water and trees and beaches and forests like within the city. I mean, anybody that follows me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook sees the pictures that I post, and you're just like, this is in the middle of a city. So I like it. I spend a lot of time outside. It's funny because LA, you'd think, well, it's LA, you spend a lot of time outside. Well, I do, but what's nice about Vancouver as a whole, as a city, there's always things going on. And so especially in the summer, whether it's, this market or this outdoor music venue or this, outdoor movies, or there's stuff going on all the time. And I live right on the water. And so you've got all the water sports. I live right on Stanley Park, and, there's biking everywhere. And it's just, I love Vancouver. So I really, honest to God, have the best of both worlds because I love LA. Kind of segueing a little bit, I just rewatched La La Land like 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and I'm like, that's my home. Like when you just realize, God, that's.
Yeah, how lucky you are to live in such a great place.
I'm one of the few people that love LA, but I really do. And I really love Vancouver. And so, I'm kind of here, off and on kind of March through November, depending on work. And then usually kind of, December to March, I'm in LA unless I have to be here for work. So I really I miss out on a lot of the rain here because I'm in California. I'm in Southern California for Christmas. But
are any of yours and Will's animals with you?
No, I can't have any pets in my apartment that I have here because they would, I would rotate. But no, he's holding down the fort. He's Dr. Doolittle. The 5 dogs and the 5 cats and squirrels, birds, and so yeah, he holds down the fort, and then I come home and we tag team. It's like, you're on your. I mean, but it's literally a revolving door. He was doing a lot of work in Florida earlier this year, and so literally, like, it was a revolving door. It's like, I'm home, okay, go. I'm back, okay, you go. And we're like, hi, bye. So
you've got it. You've been together so long. You've got it down to a science.
Yeah, it's when it's a mature relationship and a secure relationship and a grounded relationship, and we're both, responsible, grounded people, that it's, I mean, I'm away from home a lot. I'm so blessed to be able to work in Canada and, live up here and have an apartment, but it's, my life here is really modest. And I do have to be away from home a lot, but, in the same breath, it's, I don't know, like we'll be together in the same town sometime forever. But right now it's still just always a revolving door, but it works. We're happy.
That's what matters. And it only has to matter to the two of you, nobody else.
Hey, and speaking of Will, I'll just toot his horn a little bit while he's on he just booked a NCIS.
Oh, fun.
He starts shooting that next week. So.
And that shoots right there in California?
In LA, yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, another fan, Megan, was hoping you could share some Fantastic Four stories.
Oh, wow. I have to say, gosh, we shot that in 1992?
Wow, is it that old already?
Can you
do
that? So
wow.
I don't even want to do the math, but the cool thing is in a nutshell, for those of you who don't know, Fantastic Four, it was a comic book that we did in 1992, which they call the 1994 because that's kind of when it was supposed to come out, but we shot it in 92. Okay. It was the very first Fantastic Four movie, but it was the entire budget was $1 million for the entire movie. Wow. And to make a hugely long story short, the executive producer, what we didn't know until later, in order to fulfill his contract to Marvel, because his contract to produce the Fantastic Four was expiring. And so he had to have the film in production in order to renew the contract. So they put together this production at the very last minute. So we were in production. He renewed the contract, but then as soon as we were finished shooting, they shelved the whole movie. He bought it out from the producer, and it was shelved. And so it was supposed to be this movie, but then nobody ever saw it because he wanted to wait until he had a $50 million budget to shoot another one, which he did down the road. So ours was kind of shelved, which at the time was really disappointing to a lot of fans. But what ended up happening, it became a huge underground hit. It was a huge cult hit because it was kind of hard to come by, or you could get a really bad VHS version of one of the.
Yeah, those things when people know about it and they can't get it, and then it becomes it's so interesting in cinema.
And the story behind the story, there's another documentary that was made called Doomed, which kind of tells the story about why the movie that we made was never released and kind of everything that had happened behind the scenes. But because of that, it actually stays alive. That if it might have just come out and fizzled and you'd never hear from us again. But since it always kind of keeps resurrecting itself, the four of us plus, the director and the guy who played Dr. Doom, there's really like 7 of us because the Thing character was also a stunt man. And so he's kind of part of our little gang. And so instead of the Fantastic Four, we're kind of the Super 7, that we are all still like friends. I mean, how does that happen when a movie was 30 odd years ago? And I was just with Alex Hyde White, who played Mr. Fantastic. I was just with him right when I was in LA before I came back here to shoot this film, because I was doing an audio version of one of the Fantastic Four books that was written. And Joseph Culp, who played Dr. Doom, now lives in France. But it's funny, whenever he comes to LA, he stays at our house. And awesome. Jay, who played my brother, who played Johnny Storm, was literally my neighbor in LA. And then he quit the business, went away, became a preacher, that he's a pastor. And then they come back to LA. And so it's funny that we still, like, it really still feels like our buddy film is still alive and has some energy. And
do you ever do like the Comic-Con things for the film?
We did for a long time. And one that we did in St. Louis that was called Contamination was one of the best ones, because they actually got an okay version of the film. Like, there was one that somebody had kind of secretly digitally remastered, and they played it at the convention. They weren't allowed to play it in a theater because of copyrights and everything, but we did it in this huge ballroom with this incredible sound system. I mean, the sound in this movie is off the charts, because, you always watched it on a little cheesy VHS video, or, I have a DVD, but it'll only play on my computer. So I'd never really seen it. No, nobody had. And so to watch it on a big screen, even though it wasn't a movie theater, with an audience and with that sound, it was just like, it became.
How many years later was that? Because that's got to be so.
Gosh, we did that in, I'm going to guess, kind of 2009.
It must have been such a strange thing, so long after the movie, and then to be with an audience watching.
Be with an audience. Well, then we with an audience, like, the movie's funny. Like, we didn't really know it was funny because there's parts that are cheesy, just because of the budget, I mean, but we did the movie.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of a superhero movie made on $1 million.
You can't even make a 15-second TV commercial for $1 million, much less like a special effects movie. Like, we wore our own, like, everything that I wore outside of the Fantastic Four, kind of leotard. It was my own clothes. It was so unbelievably budgeted. And, it shows on the screen. It's kind of campy, but it was shot to look like the comic book, and to be loyal to the comic book. The comic book came out, I don't know if it was 60 or 61. And so there's a little bit of a of a retro look to it too, because we really made it for the comic book fans. That it wasn't so much hoo big theater movie star. It's like, wow, we have to make this. And so since it's so comic bookily precise, that's why the fans that really know it, and it has so much heart because it really is a buddy film, because it starts when we're just regular people and then we become the superheroes. And so we don't have a lot of the film where we're already superheroes. We're regular people, and then we become superheroes, and then we're trying to kind of figure out how do we use these new strengths. And it also has a really good message, because in that movie, it's like our weaknesses became our strength, like, because Sue was actually very shy. She was a very very introverted person. So therefore she becomes invisible. Johnny Storm is the other time, like, he was, fiery and, erratic. And so, he turns into throwing the flames. Mr. Fantastic, it was like he was always spreading himself too thin. He was like in charge of everything, taking care of everybody. And so, he turns into, he stretches to cover everything. And then Grimm was, kind of his brute strength, that he was this innocent kind of character, but always relied on his brute strength because he was big and strong. And then he turns into the Thing. And so it's a really nice message, I think, when people, and especially kids, watch the movie, that sometimes what you think is a weakness is actually your greatest strength. So
yeah, it's interesting. You don't know really until an audience sees something. Did you know the Fantastic Four before you were cast?
I didn't. That was back in '92, and there wasn't really internet then, like, to speak of. And I read comic books as a kid, but not those kind. And so it wasn't until I got the audition that I went and bought a comic book, and I was like, I could play her. I look like her. And thankfully it went in my direction, and it's lasted all these years. So
that's the best part. That's the best part. What you put on film, what the work you put in and everybody puts in, and that people could still, enjoy it is amazing.
Yeah. And, we'll probably do conventions again, but, you kind of got to give it a break. And what I have, like, buried away in my storage unit that's secure, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, at the time when we were shooting the Fantastic Four, because I always take a lot of behind the scenes picture, but it was a Christmas time, and I had just gotten a video camera. Now, this was in '92 when they were, the little home video cameras.
Yeah, that's great.
So I shot all this video footage. I don't have still pictures. I have all this video footage, but it is stored away, like, in these crates that I'll get to it someday.
At a Comic-Con, those fans would love that.
Well, we're also still kind of waiting that maybe there'll be, another Fantastic Four, 5 or 6 or 7. I don't even know what they're up to now. And it'd be nice
I don't either.
Us in it in some capacity. We could play, some other character.
Yeah.
It would be nice if they ever do release ours, that I would have, actual film from behind the scenes. And now I'm dying to see it too, because so much of it you completely forget. But that's a nice little treasure chest that'll come out at some point when I get into my storage space again.
I forgot when I mentioned Glee and Harry Shum Jr. You appeared on Glee, right?
Yep, I did an episode of that as well. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't work with Harry. My character didn't interact with him at all. But Matthew Morrison actually is my neighbor. He lives across the street from us. So
get out.
We get to see him all the
time.
I
love Mr. Shoe.
Oh God, I just, and it was funny because I was the hugest fan of the show, and whenever, like, I'm a fan of somebody, like, I kind of turn into, like, my 7-year-old shy self. Every other neighbor, I'm like, yeah, and then he walks by, and I'm like, and I go run in the house, and I do, well, I'm like Matthew Morrison just walked by, and he was like, did you say hi? I'm like, I couldn't. I was like, too sorry. He's like, you are such a dork. And so
I stopped him at a street fair in New York when Glee had just started. I saw him walking down the street in New York City.
We saw him. We saw him in Peter Pan in New York because we happened to be there when he was starring in Peter Pan.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh my God, that was
I did see him in Hairspray, but it was before I really knew who he was. You know,
Did you
when
know
he
that I was in the original Hairspray, the original one with
Ricky the movie?
Ricky Lake, yeah, and Divine, because
Wow.
Sean Thompson, my ex,
Yes.
from Guiding
Yes.
Light, he was Corny Collins in the very first movie with Ricky Lake. So, and they shot it in Baltimore because that's where John Waters lived. And so we were in New York at the
I
time.
don't remember that.
Yeah, so I was down there all the time and got to hang out, you know, with John Waters and Divine and Ricky and gosh, and Josh, I'm just blinking out his last name, who like went on to huge fame. It was like his very first movie. He was just a local kid. But, you know, since I was there all the time, John's like, we're going to put you in something. So if you ever watch the original Hairspray again, there's this
I
scene.
will. It's first of all, it's my husband's favorite, one of his favorites.
Well, when you watch, there's a scene at the car show.
Okay.
There's a ribbon cutting that I think Tracy is the one that, you know, cuts the ribbon. And I'm one of the car show models that's holding the ribbon. That, you know, and they have got like the big beehive, and they put like a blue car in my hair, like for the
Josh Charles.
Josh Charles, yeah. That was his.
Oh, I worked with Josh on Dead Poets Society.
Oh, you worked on that?
I was at Disney doing movie PR.
You know, I just rewatched that the other day. I was dog sitting
at
a friend's house, and so it was like on this Netflix, and I was like going back and watching.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Robin Williams, man.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, Josh was great in that. Yeah, so the original Hairspray, I was actually in that.
I love that. Well, you just brought up Sean. One of our fans, Deedlesbug, just said, my husband used to watch Guiding Light with me, and his favorite characters were Jesse and Simon.
They were my favorite
too. Jesse, they were popular. What do you remember about that pairing?
Well, we were a couple in real life, and so it was really easy. Like we met.
Were you a couple before?
No, we met there. We met on the show, and
right, but they put you two together on the show.
They put us together. So yeah, before they put us together, you know, you kind of see him in the dressing room, or, you know, down the hall or whatever. Hold on, I'm coughing for some reason. So yeah, as soon as they put us together on the show, you know, it was a little art imitating life, because, you know, in Sean's background, he'd been a magician and a comic. And
I forgot that. I remember now.
Yeah. And, you know, and he'd done, you know, theater, and like he had been in New York. He was auditioning for Saturday Night Live. Then is when the audition for Guiding Light came up. So because he was there auditioning for Saturday Night Live, he auditioned for Guiding Light. So he got that. And, you know, my character was just the sweet, innocent, naive, which at the time it was only my second job. I had just done Loving before that. I mean, Loving was the first audition I'd ever gone on in my life, and I booked it. And then while I was on Loving, I auditioned for Guiding Light and got that and came over. So I was, you know, with Jesse's character being a little naive, I was like a total newcomer to the business. And then, you know, Simon's character was playing, you know, kind of this con man. You didn't know if he was a good guy or a bad guy. And so, yeah, as soon as they put our characters together, it just kind of sparked.
Fans loved it. Yeah, fans loved it. Was
he
conning Alexandra? Beverly McKinsey?
No, I'm trying to go back. He was her nephew? Maybe one of the fans know. God, it's been so long ago. Or stepson? Was he like an?
Oh God, I don't remember.
I think
he was. His character was Simon Hall. Simon
Hall, and I forget how he was related to Alexandra. That he was the son of one of her son.
Wait, I'm gonna hold on. I might be able to tell you.
It was so long ago. I can't remember how he tied in, but yeah, his associate.
Oh yes, he was a half brother of Lou Jack and Nick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I forget how
He was Brandon Spalding's illegitimate son.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he pretended to be Alex's son, but I don't think he really was.
Yeah. So that was really, we had so much fun. It was just fun and, kind of.
Do you know
easy.
if he still acts?
Sean is actually up. He went back to, he's Canadian. So he went back to Toronto and he was acting. He started writing and directing. So most of his time was really, he kind of segued into writing and creating and directing, and still kind of some stuff. He had a series, I don't know the name of it, maybe somebody else there knows, and I didn't hear this from him, it was a mutual friend, but there's some series that shot in Toronto that's about these young girls who are gymnasts. Is it on Netflix? I don't know. It's a series, and he actually plays the lead girl's grandfather. And like,
wow.
He's pretty well known in Toronto. He's, like I said, it was mostly for like writing and directing and producing stuff. But, they know him as a performer. And whoever the executive producers were when they were casting it couldn't find this grandfather. And one of the producers are like, who is perfect for this role is Sean Thompson. And he hadn't really done anything in a long time, in front of the camera.
Yeah, I haven't seen him.
They called him and had a meeting. And I wish I knew the name of it because, I'd like to watch it, but somebody could Google it.
Somebody will. I will come back to Guiding Light in a minute, but Arlene just said, I love Rebecca's posts when you're on location in Canada. The last one about the Northern Lights, I loved it, and that's on my bucket list.
Mine too.
But speaking of your posts, I want you to share this story because I really was so moved and I loved it, about your niece's children and what they did with their Halloween candy.
Cry.
Well, it's beautiful, and every child that age should be taught that, because that doesn't just come from their little hearts, which maybe it does, but you really grow up being educated on what is the right thing to do.
My niece and her husband are a parenting team, and she has 4 now. But the three oldest ones, Henry's, I'm going to probably get their ages kind of wrong. I think like Henry's 5. Henry's 8, Lily's 5, and Theo's 3. And so for Halloween, they, got dressed up and went out with their friends and trick-or-treated. But then when they came home, they, went through their candy and selected some of the candy that they wanted to keep. But they decided, it's going to make me cry, to give their candy away. So they put all their candy in big bags and they went to the Children's Hospital in Minneapolis where they live. And they gave the candy to the kids in the hospital who didn't get to go out trick-or-treating. And so at that age, from 8 to 5 to 3, they, are taught, and it's ingrained in them, to give, and to serve and to, be good to other people and to help people that are, not.
We all know what kids love their Halloween candy.
Yeah.
And that just moved me to pieces. I just thought it was a beautiful, especially today, to see the young generation being taught that.
Well, and the thing is like, they wanted to, and they were excited, and to them that was fun. And they firsthand, look, I got little tears coming out. They firsthand experienced that joy of giving. Henry was saying like it was so much more fun at the hospital than actually trick-or-treating. It's like the actual joy of giving. They were so excited. And, and they didn't pick out the good candy and leave the crappy candy for the other kids. Like they were really generous in wanting to share, good things with other kids that didn't have.
Well, we can all learn from your niece's children.
Yes.
Tony just shared that Sean's show is called My Perfect Landing.
Oh, okay. I gotta write that down. Well, let's all watch it because
me too. Seamus and Karen.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Seamus and Karen were asking if you can share memories, what you remember of the Samson Girl contest and Krista Tessero and Christy Farrell.
Gosh, It was all so fun. It was funny because I came not really from the pageant world, but I was Miss Nebraska, for those of you who don't know. Back in the day, Miss Nebraska, in the Miss USA pageant. And that was, when Bob Barker was hosting and Donny Osmond was our special guest. And I got to sing and dance with Donny Osmond, which it was, I was 18 when I did that. And so, I just had so much fun. And my year at the Miss USA pageant, everybody, before and since had said, like, that was one of the best years. Sean Weatherly, like, who went on to be an actress too, she won that year. She was Miss South Carolina and she won. And she was so fabulous. And it was like a really good, close feeling, like it wasn't all those nasty stories that you hear about pageants and stuff. So I had a very positive personal pageant history. So then when we did the Samson Girl contest, well, it was funny. Let me back up again. My very first TV show that I shot in LA, I was still living in New York, and they flew me out to do Matlock. And it was like a beauty pageant. And it was, I'm just blanking out on because my head's going so fast. What was her name? I'll think of it in a minute. Little short dancer.
From Matlock?
No, she was the other guest star. Oh God, her name's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, my Matlock was also a pageant too. And so it's so kind of funny, like doing the pageant ones, but going back to, Guiding Light. Yeah. Because, Dick Cavett was one of the judges. And so that was, he's an institution, to meet him and work with him and, Christy and Krista.
Are you talking about Nancy Stafford, Tanya Williams?
No, she wasn't. Oh, no, not Tanya, but Nia Peoples.
Oh, Nia Peoples. Yeah, there she is.
Yeah, because she and I, and Tanya Lee Williams, who was later on Young and the Restless, we were like the contestants beauty pageant on Matlock when I was then accused of murder that I didn't commit, I'm sure. So yeah, the Samson Girl contest, it was fun because, we had to do our little talent thing. One of the things that I remember though about the talent thing, because I wanted to tap dance. Okay. Well, right before my tap dance, we shot Krista's, her little routine, and she had done like a gymnastics routine, like acrobat, right? So then they padded the stage and then put like a rubber, like kind of a stretch rubber tarp. So now it's padded and rubber. And then I have to tap dance on a padded rubber floor. That doesn't work very well. So it was, that didn't go very well. So if anybody ever watches it, and I hope nobody has footage because my tap dance was a total disaster.
Oh, I wonder if that's on YouTube. Some of the contest is on YouTube, but I don't know if the
oh my
routines.
God, I hope it just like goes away. Now watch, now somebody will find it. But it was so embarrassing because I'm like, I really can dance, and it just looks like I totally can't because you can't tap dance on a rubber mat. But anyway, so that was a funny anecdote from then. But yeah, like we had just so much fun on that show as a whole. I don't know. I guess I have fun.
Well, it was really, Loving was a short role, and this was a longer role in your first.
Loving was only supposed to be 6 episodes. It was my very first audition I'd ever done in my life. And it was just this character, like this little kind of Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, punk rock teenager that I was just supposed to come on for 6 episodes and in the summer to split up the lead couple, to kind of get their storyline going, that they're broken up for the summer. Well, the character just caught on. And so I kept going back and going back and going back. And I was on like for 6 months. And my agent kept asking them, do you want to put her under contract? And they're like, no. And he's like, okay, you sure you don't want to put her under contract? They're like, no, it's fine. So I auditioned for Guiding Light and booked Guiding Light, which was a contract role. And, then my agent called Loving and said, she's starting on Guiding Light on Monday. And Loving's like, what? She needs to be here on Monday. Well, she's not under contract. And so they literally like cast me over the weekend. And Mark Teschner, who's the casting director for General
General
Hospital.
Hospital.
He was also the casting director when I was on Port Charles. It was his very first day as a casting director on Loving. His very first day was like, quick, you've got to get a new Cecilia Thompson before Monday. And so that was my first non-encounter with Mark Teschner, but he always kind of remembered me from that, is because I literally like shot on a Friday. I finished Loving on a Friday and went to Guiding Light on Monday.
Wow.
Yeah,
What do you think you learned from those first 2 jobs that you've taken with you?
You know, it sounds just like, you know, to really have fun with it. I mean, I think ironically, some of my most, it's the spontaneity, it's the freshness, because especially with Loving, since I'd never done TV before, I was in theater in high school and college, and my high school theater teacher, you know, Mr. Parkhurst, hello if you're out there anywhere.
Love that.
Had always, you know, taught us in high school theater, like when you're on stage, it's a visual medium. You know, don't just ever, like, always be doing something and make a picture, make a story. If the focus isn't on you, it's like, find something to do, make a story, make a picture, whatever you're doing, make it a picture. And so ironically, that would always come to mind on those 2 shows, because especially on Loving, you know, Cecilia was just so this, you know, attitude, and I could be in a scene and have absolutely no dialogue and, you know, kind of not steal the scene, but I would always find crap to do, you know, because I have my gum, and I would just be on set and I'd be like going through somebody's drawers, like while the scene's going on. And so I think it was I didn't really know the rules, and so I didn't have to play by them because I didn't really know them.
That's actually, I love that. That's great.
Yeah, and so then part of the beauty of Jessie Matthews on Guiding Light, because Jessie herself as a character was so innocent and naive. You know, she'd been a victim of a stage mother. She'd never gone to a real school, never had real friends. So everything on Guiding Light for that character was brand new. And so I got to have that excitement of the firsts, of my first this and my first that. And so I try to, you know, remember those things with just, you know, keeping things real, because like anything, you know, either as an adult, you grow up and there's rules, or, you know, sometimes, you know, you just kind of forget all the rules and just, you know, play and have fun. And so that, you know, not to mention just having a real facility for memorization, because there's so much dialogue and you shoot so fast. And especially later when I was on Port Charles, and we would shoot 2 episodes in a day, and it was just a runaway train, and we had to be out of the studio by 5 o'clock. I mean, there was a deadline. It wasn't one of those shows where you could shoot until midnight. It's like, you know, if you're up last and it's 4:45, I mean, you get there, like there's no blocking, there's no rehearsal. It's like you come, you know, so there was so much, like you have to know it and just produce instantaneously. And so that's
and wasn't Will doing like 5 episodes before he left General Hot? Like they were doing, like it's progressed so much. Like you said, Guiding Light was sort of normal, then Port Charles was 2, and I think today some of those shows are doing 5.
Well, it's all, you know, because of lack of money. Like they keep squeezing the budgets and squeezing the budgets, and so they kind of block shoot. Yeah, and so if they're doing like 5 episodes kind of intertwined in one day, that you're doing a piece from this episode, a piece from that episode, a piece, and so trying to keep track of what's happened, what hasn't happened, who said what, where you came from, as well as just this never-ending dialogue. It's a muscle that, you know, I'm rusty at now, because I don't have to memorize that much anymore like I did on the soap. But it was very advantageous in my early years as an actor, because I thought that was normal. And so you're always ready, and you always know it all, and like you're ready to go all the time, no matter what. It's like, I know it all. It's like, oh, we're only shooting these 3 pages today. It's like, oh, okay.
Is there someone at Guiding Light you think you learned a lot from?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there someone at Guiding Light you think you learned a lot from?
Oh, I don't know, like in particular. I got,
Yeah,
I had
no,
so long ago
and
now.
yeah, exactly. And your first day was Kurt and Mindy's wedding, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that was nice for first day because it was this fairy tale wedding. We were out, on location, and we came rolling in like on a horse-drawn carriage, wearing their Ralph Lauren little tweed suit. And it was a real fairy tale. But the nicest thing is that the whole cast was there because you rarely ever work with everybody all the time. Like you're passing each other in the hallways, or I'm here Monday and Tuesday and you're here Thursday and Friday. But that day, for being my first day, everybody was there. So I got to meet everybody all at once and kind of come in, magically. So
Right.
that was a good first
And
day.
it wasn't your decision to leave, right? There was a new regime who had
No,
come
there
in.
was a new producer came in. And so if you hadn't been like a long-term established character, or if you weren't a Spalding or you weren't a Bauer, if you were just, kind of non-related, I went away to college. Jesse went away. I went away to Duke University, and I hoped I would come back, but by then I had already, just moved on to other stuff. So the timing was fine because as soon as I was done on Guiding Light, I just went off and did other things. And, years later, decades later, I was like, gosh, what if I would have stayed on? Because a lot of people get on a soap and you stay on forever. And, I'm always like, gosh, what would it be like if I was on a soap now? But then I think of this chunk of work, over the last 30 years that I never would have been able to do, or, trips that I took, or, places that I shot on location. So I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't have it any other way. And it was the same thing with Port Charles, because when Port Charles happened, I was kind of like, I'm ready to go back on a soap. I'm like, now I want to go on and stay on forever. And I was so excited when I started Port Charles because my character, Elizabeth Barrington, I just loved. I loved playing this role and loved everybody in that cast.
What was it about Elizabeth that you loved?
Well, for one thing, she was very, very, very wealthy, and so she had fabulous wardrobe. I gotta say, it's fun. You get to go to work, you got to play. It's
for
it's
sure.
Fun.
Yeah.
I just, and her, it's always more fun playing a bitch. Playing an evil character is so, it's all the things that you don't get to do in real life. But then, she still had her tender and loving, loved Alice, and I loved my daughter so much. And so you still have, the good character, but it was, playing the, kind of the dark side. And then I got to be a vampire. So that was fun. But, she was just, conniving and plotting. And here's a funny twist that behind the scenes that nobody knows, speaking of wardrobe, because anytime I would go in for a wardrobe fitting, because of being a model for so many years, like I know how stuff fits me. So I'd be in and I'd be like, if this was just, and I would go in wardrobe and kind of, they have somebody there to do alterations, and I would kind of change things or make things fit. And so as I was on longer, one day they were all in a production meeting, and since Elizabeth was going to stay in town, they decided that she needed a job or a profession. And it's so funny that David, our wardrobe designer, like spoke up in the meeting, go, you have to make her a fashion designer, She knows what she's talking about. You've got to do it. She's perfect for that. And so that's why they made my character, go into fashion design.
Was that David Dangle?
Huh?
Was it David Dangle?
David Dangle was the costumer on Guiding Light. David Zyla.
Gotcha. Okay.
Was on Port Charles. So, but then the sad thing with that is then that show also ended when we least expected it, which is never fun. We were preparing to go back for another season, and then it was done. So,
and you worked with Michael Easton, Thorsten Kaye, and John Lindstrom. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yes. And who all else was on there? Yeah, that are all on. Well, Torsten's on Bold and Beautiful now, and Michael and John are on Guiding Lights.
General Hospital.
Sorry,
that's okay.
My D's are getting on. And it was kind of indirectly how I met Will. I didn't meet him on the show because before I'd been on, he had been a recurring character. And then when I was on the show, at one point, he came back for a couple of episodes, but I never saw him, never met him, never passed him in the hallway. But my makeup artist would always talk about him, and my makeup artist loved him. And while Will was there, had all of Will's pictures up on the mirror. And so I just kind of got to know who he was because of this makeup artist. And
I love that. Matchmaker.
Yeah, but you know, at the time, it just was kind of, at the time, it was in one ear and out the other. And then it was whatever, months later, I guess, Will started on All My Children. So now I'd be like in the soap magazine, and I'd be reading my little thing, and I'm like, oh, there's that guy. Oh, there's that. And so I would read about him, and I'm like, oh, yes, he is really interesting. Oh, he's smart. He's well-traveled. He understands art. Oh, he seems nice. Oh, he's sporty. But it was like, oh, what a great guy. But then over all the years, people were like, oh, but you know Will DeVry, assuming that I knew him. And I'm like, no, never met him. And everyone's like, oh, my God, that's so funny. You guys would be like the greatest couple. I got to make this a short story because I always
So who I was going to say, so who
and so it was 5 years later, I was at the daytime Emmys. I had gone with Tanya Lee Williams because she and I are friends, and she was on Young and the Restless, and you know, she goes, do you want to come as my date? And I'm like, yeah, I'll go. And because this was like 6 years after Port Charles, and I went and ran into Kelly Larson, who was, you know, she was one of the reporters that always did the soap magazines. And long story short, she's like, oh, do you know Will? And I'm like, no, I never met him. Everybody thinks I know him. I don't. And she kind of ended up putting us in touch with each other. We didn't meet then. We didn't meet for another 6 months. So it's this long, convoluted story that goes all the way back to Port Charles, how Will and I ended up together so far down the road. So...
Well,
so I have
people,
to thank Charles and Williams for taking me to.
I was just going to say, people really, you know, had a thing for putting you two together.
Well, and they were right. It's so weird, you know. How do people that like knew us go, oh God, you guys would be great together? And then it was like, it just kind of, we are.
Yeah, it's nice that they, you know, cared enough to do so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just mentioned, you know, something like 30 years you've been doing this.
I think it's more like 40 something. It's been a while. How old am I? Don't do the math, but it's been, it's been a while.
Well, I can just do the math from Guiding Light. What are some of your favorite roles? What roles stand out in your mind?
This one's always hard because, you know, when you're shooting, you love everything. I had a series that was only on for one season called Live Shot. It was on UPN. There used to be a network. UPN,
oh yeah, I remember UPN.
Paramount Network, and that was what in 90.
That's what Buffy started on, I think, before WB bought it.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the greatest show ever. It was a newsroom drama, but comedy. It was kind of like broadcast news meets ER. And I was the news anchor along with David Burney. He and I were the two anchors, but it was called Live Shot. And so it was, you know, it was like the whole hustle bustle of news and all of that. And it was smart. It was so smart and witty and really dry humor, which is my kind of humor. Like, I'm better at that. And it was the greatest show ever. So we did one whole season. And
it was called Love what?
No, it was called Live Shot.
Live Shot. You played Sherry Beck.
I was Sherry Beck. And that was great. So it's really too bad that never went anywhere. They were contracted for a second season and had all the scripts. They built new sets. We'd already done wardrobe, and it was literally like a week before we were supposed to go back. And there was just kind of a discrepancy between UPN and Reicher Productions, who were producing it. And they just kind of had a falling out about advertising, of all things. They had a fallout about advertising. And so they pulled the show. And it was like a couple of years later was when Sports Night came out. Remember Sports Night with Felicity Huffman? Ours, it was kind of like that. Like when that came out, we're all going, oh my God, that's our show. So that was really just a shame because, you know, my career would probably be different if that stayed on. So that was great. And, you know, we had a really great, you know, Bruce McGill, you know, was in it, and Hill Harper, you know, who's now on The Good Doctor. And Jeff Yeager and Sam Anderson. Oh my God. It was that was the greatest show. I loved, ironically, I've done 2 Roger Corman productions, which are super low budget, one of which was the Fantastic Four. And the other one, I did this movie that was shot over in Ireland that I did with Bobby Carradine that was called Stray Bullet. And again, super low budget, but we were in Ireland.
I was just going to say that can make up for anything.
Oh my gosh. And we lived like they had built, like there was a big studio, but they built this huge manor house, and we were the first people to live in the manor house. And so it was myself and Bobby and the director, Rob Spera, and the cinematographer and the editor. So we all literally lived together in this big house. And then the studio was like on the other side of the driveway. And so we shot a lot of this stuff in the house too. And it was the epitome of collaboration. I mean, really, it was like, we've got a barn, let's put on a show, is pretty much what it was.
Love that. That's great.
And we were in Ireland. And I learned a lot from that, because since it was such a cohesive group, it was the first time that I ever worked that I knew every single one of the grips and the gaffers and the set designers. Like, I knew everybody by name. And ever since then, it always reminds me, like when I go on set, because a lot of times, you're so focused on, your scene or what you're doing, and you've got, this whole world of people around, we always know like the director and the DP and probably, the main couple of cameramen, but I always really make an effort to really get to know the crew, because if anybody knows anything about production, they work 1,000 times harder than we do. I mean,
yeah.
No TV show or movie or soap opera would be what it would be without the crew, who are, the hardest working and the most dedicated. I mean, that they really are what make Hollywood hum. So
yeah, very, very true. Very true. Well, yeah. Rebecca, it is always a delight. I want to tell you that Arlene said she loves yours and Will's charitable endeavors. It's inspiring for all.
Thank you. Well, everybody can do it.
They can.
Everybody can save life.
Yep, and give your candy away.
And give your candy away.
Bill Young says Willow and I say hello from Big Bear Lake.
Well, hi. Bill has Willow, who is a dog that Will had rescued at the time that when my dad was in hospice. My dad's name is Will.
Oh.
And Will is Will, and Will was driving back to LA to neck break speed to, kind of hold down the fort while I was with my dad. And there was a dog along the side of the road in Oregon that he picked up. And this dog was still sitting under a willow tree. And so when he brought it back, we named her Willow after my dad and Will and the willow tree. And then she ended up being adopted by Bill, who's and so it's like the perfect full circle story.
I mean, that is the circle of life right there.
Oh my gosh. And gives her the most wonderful life, that it takes the people to adopt the dogs, to save a dog. But
I'm so glad I saw that. I'm so glad I saw his message.
I love Bill.
That's awesome. Rebecca, thank you. Love you. Everybody,
it always goes too fast.
Everybody, tune in to Netflix this Friday for Love Hard. Don't miss it. Bye, Rebecca. Thank you so much for doing this.
Everybody. Thanks for staying.
Bye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you, Rebecca Staab, for stopping by. And again, I think the movie looks great. Don't forget to check out Love Hard this Friday. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, turn on the notifications. The buttons down below so you're reminded of all upcoming shows. And don't miss tomorrow's episode when the nannies Renee Taylor and her son Gabe Bologna join me to talk about their new movie, Tango Shalom. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and stay safe. Bye.